This is Battleground PA, a PennLive podcast discussing the issues that matter to Pennsylvanians and documenting the events in the Keystone State and beyond that could shape how you vote in the 2024 elections.
Well, hello again, everyone. This is Joyce Davis, PennLive's outreach and opinion editor, and this is Battleground PA. We are post November 5th. And a lot of people are celebrating, it seems, and a lot of people aren't. And unfortunately, I'm now speaking to the people who aren't celebrating. They have nothing to celebrate, right? But I will let them explain this for you. I wanted to focus this discussion on the Democratic Party and to really talk about what happened, what they see coming, how they're coping, basically. And to do that, I think people know who one person is already, Rogette Harris. She's been with us many times. She's the chair of the Dauphin County Democrats. And I have also a new person with us, Christopher Kowerdovich, who is a member of the state Democratic Party, the Democratic Party at the state level. Mm-hmm. So we are going to really talk to both of them, and let's just start. I mean, I know you're feeling bad, Rogette. I know you are, as so many people who voted for Kamala Harris are. So tell us, how did you take this? Where are things right now with you and your colleagues?
To be honest, a lot of us had to take a few days to really process what happened. Wait till some of the numbers come out. As you know, we're technically still counting votes. We're still hoping that Senator Casey can sneak through. But it was a lot to take. We have had meetings since the election to process or look at things that we feel went wrong. But when I hold meetings, I'm very solution-based. So I wouldn't let anyone speak unless they had a solution to the problem. But I am encouraging all Democrats from the top down to really self-reflect and take a look at what went wrong and what we should do moving forward. A lot of finger pointing, a lot of the blame game, that's not going to help. And I definitely encourage everyone to not do that.
Right, I hear what you're saying. But one of the questions I have is, don't people also just need to vent, to let it out? So, yeah,
they do. And I've spoken to people on the state level and obviously on the local level. I've spoken to candidates and electeds and whatnot. And of course, I have my own perspective of what I think went wrong. Some things I've been pushing for years that I think this year magnified it.
Well, we'll get back into that. Let's bring Chris into the conversation. Chris, how are you feeling?
So I'm feeling disappointed, I will say that. I was hoping for better results. But when I look at it around the world, incumbent parties that have been in power have been hemorrhaging losses at the polls. This has not been a good cycle on that perspective. There is a global inflation problem that is going on in everywhere around the world. The GOP did better with people making under $50,000 a year, whereas Democrats did better with now people making over $100,000 a year. I don't have the exact numbers. Don't want to get too wonky here.
Where are those numbers? Where's that statistics coming from?
That came from MSNBC.
Okay.
This was an MSNBC analysis that they had done on that. And I think one of the things that people were really hurting on is in this post-inflation economy is there's two classes I kind of seen of people. And this is my own analysis. Is if people who make under $50,000 a year are more likely to be renting, and they're paying over $1,700. I Googled this earlier today, the average rent. If you look at what rental apartments is, now, of course, Pennsylvania is a big state. There's going to be all different numbers, but we're paying a lot in rent. That's the point I'd like to make. And those making over $100,000, if you are more likely to own a house, right, and have a mortgage that got fixed in at those most of them got fixed in at those pre-inflation, those interest rates were lower. I know personally, I own a house and my mortgage rate is lower than my CD rates, which is very rare to happen. So I think that's part of the economic strain.
You're right. You do believe the economy was the issue. You really do believe that.
Yeah, I do because
I'm doubting that. I just asked because, I'm just saying, like, when I look at all the numbers, when I look at everything that's out there, when I see how low unemployment is, but again, you're right. Maybe I'm not in the situation
so
where people are feeling those rents, but
so if you are paying 1,700 in rent, you're making 50,000 a year.
hmm,
Gross percentage of your gross income, not your net, your gross income is over 40% in rent. Now you got to pay for your car, you got to pay for your food, you got to pay for all those things. And I think the ad, the transphobic ad that said we are against they them and with the working and middle class, bring something a little bit of the Trojan horse in there, so to speak, of people like, oh, they're for the other people, right? They don't
hmm.
necessarily defend what they them is in that ad. Is that the billionaire class? Is it who is the other people, right? Give you some ambiguity in there. And you see where the numbers are coming in with that. So that's kind of one of the things that I do feel sad that America picked
Yeah,
that.
let me ask you, where do you live, Chris?
I live in Chester County, PA,
In Chester County. Okay,
and
all right.
we did really well. We did a 14 point uh, for Harris in Chester
Okay.
County, and 10 years ago, Chester County was solid red.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, Rogette, let me
Am I
bring you in here. How did we do? And what are those lessons that you learned?
Well, only 8 states in Pennsylvania, 67 counties, only 8 counties went blue. Dauphin County was one of the 8 counties to go blue. I will say that I do agree with Chris that people are suffering the economy. I will also say that Trump did play on people's fears. With that said, I think that is, I don't want to say an excuse, but I think it makes people feel better to go back to the past and vote for Donald Trump versus vote for Kamala Harris. I think it's a red herring, and I'll tell you why. Number one, and I'm right here, Dauphin County, the T, and this is something that I will put on more so the candidates necessarily than the party. But Philadelphia and Pittsburgh cannot win Pennsylvania alone. I can name the number of times statewide candidates came to South Central Pennsylvania. And trust me, I won't even fill up a whole hand. Some of these candidates lived in the East and the West. It does not win elections. We've seen this in the past. Those of us who live in the T have, this is an every 2 year cycle thing, but I think out of all the years, this year has shown the most. You just cannot win this state on just going to Pittsburgh and Phyllis. I will not obviously neglect the importance of those two larger cities for sure. There are large voting blocks, but there are too many votes in the middle that went completely ignored. Now, who gave them that advice? I don't know. But you don't go to Philadelphia 19 times and come to Harrisburg maybe once or twice. We're the state capital, for goodness sakes, and we're the one county in South Central PA to consistently go blue. Our turnout was 72.9%, which if you look at the counties is about even, but it's still lower than normal presidential years. Some of our candidates, real quick, look at our congressional race. Janelle Stelchen lost by less, what, 1%? If you would have spent a little bit more time, even when you look at Senator Casey, 1 or 2% more in every county in the T, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. So that's one of the things that I think as a party and as candidates we need to work on. That's one of my three main
Well, let me
points.
see, Chris. Chris, do you agree with that? Do you believe that they're paying too much attention to the big cities, the
So,
big P's, and leaving out the little T's?
so I advocated for what Harris was saying, and I
Mhm.
was basically told you can do that as yourself. You can go out and work with your veteran candidates in areas, not just the T, the suburban. She came once to Chester County, and I don't
Mm.
think there was any other surrogate. Chester County has over 500,000 people in it. That's a huge chunk of people, and even though there wasn't enough seats, they went into like this small uh middle school, I guess, or something. It was a small place. They didn't even go into, and we could have packed the whole arena. And when I try to, for the Go TV weekend, get like people motivated, I I put out the sign saying, look, these are what the numbers are saying for a potential Trump when we need to win Pennsylvania. And there just wasn't that motivation. It was, if you go into Philadelphia, I kept getting asked, you need to go into Philadelphia. You need to go into Philadelphia. And I'm like, but for me, it's going to take me 3 hours of driving to get to the place to go knock for 2 hours. Wouldn't it be better for me to spend 5 hours knocking in my community?
Mm. Well, what I'm hearing now, correct me if I'm wrong though. What I'm hearing is divisions within the party, even right here in Pennsylvania, that everybody's not on the same, you know, you're not, there's a divide between clearly Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and but are Philadelphia and Pittsburgh together? I mean, I'm just hearing division, and I'm wondering how you're going to overcome that.
Well, I would put this more on the candidates than
Okay.
on the party, to be fair.
Okay.
Now, even if, and I'm not saying this happened, I don't know, but even if, for instance, they were told, oh, don't worry about Dauphin County, it goes blue in even years, blah, 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 just go to Pittsburgh, that's where we need to vote. You don't have to listen. So I'm going to put that more on the candidates. Now, there are issues with the party for sure, yes, I won't deny that, but this issue is more candidate driven.
Yeah, but again, I guess what I'm hearing too is they should be coming to you guys for guidance. I mean, you're the experts. You know your
Well,
areas,
yes,
right?
and that
So
is a problem too, and that brings me, if you don't mind,
yeah,
uh
please.
to sort of my second part. We do need to go back to being more grassroots, because unfortunately, people come in from other states, and that's great, but they don't know our communities like we do. So you come in and you tell your community what to do, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes, unfortunately, the candidates are more willing to listen to them than listen to the county parties, frankly, who are born, raised, live, and organize here. And that was the problem, not just in Pennsylvania, but nationwide.
I
Um,
see. So it
that's an
wasn't just
issue
Pennsylvania
as
that
well.
was dealing with this, people coming in and telling you what to do. It was other areas as well in the campaign.
Oh, yes, but this is
Hmm.
something that we're going to do, and we have this issue with some of the local candidates. Even if you don't have a race yourself, you still need to get out there and motivate your constituency group to help, the other candidates, and to help grow. One thing that we're doing here in Dauphin County as a party is we're going to actually set up a coordinated campaign committee where candidates, coordinated campaigns and whatnot have to come through that committee to make sure that efforts are coordinated. I got phone calls from people who literally got 14 knocks at their door.
Hmm.
We need to streamline things through the county parties. And that was not done this time. We can't irritate our voters.
So are you saying that there was just too much going on outside of, I mean, people were doing their own thing in different organizations or what?
Well, we don't have power over third party groups. Obviously, they're going to do what they're going to do, but we can control, or at least have a better handle and foundation on what's going on within the party. And we did not have the coordination that we should have had.
I see.
So
How
some
about,
people didn't get any knocks. Some people got 20.
wow.
Uh,
Christopher, do you agree with that or what?
yes, I so I was thinking that was a Chester, like a suburban strategy thing where they were over knocking doors, and I just made that kind of like, I was like, well, maybe this is just this suburban thing that was going on. Okay, so this was statewide. And we can be up here and we can talk on our perspective that, oh yeah, we're the ones that know what we're doing, blah blah blah. But where is the proof? The proof is in the Pennsylvania State Assembly. Democrats won in a red wave.
Mm.
That points to I look at the prime example is I'll bring in somebody from the western side of state over by Erie. That's State Rep Ryan Bizzaro. He'd been, the treasurer candidate, but he wins in his district that the county voted for Donald Trump. right? They went for Donald Trump, and he's just that kind of candidate that goes in with those bread and butter issues, was talking about helping the average folks, bipartisan approach, all around just a really electable candidate, right? And what we have this this machine come in, which I will give this caveat to Vice President Harris. Like, she had 107 days to create a campaign team. So I think
That's a good point. Yes.
I don't really I will honestly say I do not I think she was a great candidate, and I think she's the worst campaign to candidate ratio I've seen. I'm just being bluntly honest here. And what I seen was and part of that is just the dynamic of trying to get people to work together that have not worked together and have the time to be like, okay, I trust Harris, you know what I mean? And I can, go to her and know that's who we're going to trust to deliver for here. So you need Harris to come in 3 days, or do we want to bring in, you know, somebody else, or whatever we need to do to deliver in the droves that county?
Well, Christopher raised a good point, Rogette. I'll let you weigh in here, and that is, did the Democrats wait too long to change their candidates? She did have only 107 days, right? And
She did.
yet, I will throw one other thing in there, is that I have to ask, was it a mistake to think that the nation would accept a Black Asian woman president? I know that's a tough question to handle, but I got to
Well,
throw it
not for
out there.
me. I've been speaking about this. I think it's time to look in the mirror and admit that race and gender played a huge role in the elections this year. We can't pretend it, we can't ignore it. And this also includes within the Democrat Party. It needs to be addressed. The majority of white women, let's be honest, voted for Trump, but still voted to keep abortion rights in their state through referendums on the ballot. A lot of people don't like me bringing this up, but I'm the only elected Black female chair in this state. 67 counties, that should not be. And we'd have to do a whole nother show to talk about what I deal with on my level, let alone what she had to deal with,
That you deal with even
on,
within the Democratic Party that is supposed to be advancing people of color and diversity.
yes. And I hear a lot from people, oh, this is one election, we'll have another election, we have to move on. People don't care about race or gender, ignoring the issue. It's time that the Democrat Party gets comfortable being uncomfortable. We have to have these discussions because it's minimizing the fear and the frustrations of millions of Americans. And like the commercial that Chris brought up, Trump played on people's fears, and we did not respond. And we need to respond more to that. We have to address, we can't be the party of voting rights. We can't be campaigning against the Scott Perrys, the insurrectionists. But then as soon as someone thinks outside the box, quote, doesn't know their place, create little insurrections within the party. And that's where the party elite gets into play, as trying to always choose our leaders and our candidates. And if they don't get their way, then we just try to start something else, or we don't want to be involved. The truth is in the pudding with this election. But I do think that race and gender played a part. Whether or not the country is ready or not, we shouldn't have to wait 100 years till certain constituencies are ready. This election also proved you can't take any constituency group for granted. Trump and the Republicans did get a larger share of Latinos specifically, and even Black men. So it's time that we don't take for granted, and that we start really working for and showing receipts for all constituency groups. We need all of our votes.
Well, Christopher, do you agree with that? Because I'll tell you, the other thing that I've heard criticized from the other side is that Democrats were too focused on identity politics, right? As if, but that's out there. That maybe you guys have just gone too far to the left with all of this stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
So here's an interesting thing. That was one of the things that Bernie Sanders said, right? We had to focus on the economy and everything. So let's do a test. Let's analyze that. So I went into Google search like 2 days after that, and I typed in Bernie Sanders economy. Came up as 5 pages talking about the economy. Then I typed in Gaza. There were 6 pages of Gaza. So I do see that kind of like when it's an issue I'm concerned about, I'm able to talk about it. But then when it's an issue that's related to some other group that I'm not concerned about, then you need to talk about the economy. So to me, isn't that do as I say, not as I do? Kind of a mentality that I seen coming from that. So yeah, I do think that the focus on the economy was one of the things in general, that's another part that I'm very disappointed with was Bernie Sanders and the left for not acknowledging that this was an opportunity to get a woman of color elected, and they were very divisive to a lot of our campaign strategies and such. And we were and like didn't really. And I had conversations with people in the DSA. I'm like, come on, Harris was the like most liberal senator at one point in Congress, so you're getting everything on the table here. We're putting something, a candidate. I mean, I voted for Bernie Sanders before. I was a Warren delegate. This was a progressive person, which held some really strong values, and I am so disappointed in what they're not really rallying behind Harris, to see that kind, the grassroots that didn't rally behind Harris to get a woman of color elected.
Well, I
I
have to
think there are
ask.
some, I'm sorry, I
Go
think
ahead, no,
some
go ahead.
people do, I think a lot of people do want a colorblind society, but the issue is we're not.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I don't want you to not see I'm a Black woman. I just don't want to be treated differently because I am one. You know, that's part of my identity. And that's where I agree with Chris. By ignoring it, you're not helping the issue. If anything, you're giving people license to sort of act like it's not self-reflect
Yeah.
on themselves and their feelings about. I mean, I had men say to me, I'm not voting for Harris. I'm not going to vote for a woman. We can't have a
Yeah.
woman. Yeah, I mean, I've literally had men say that to my face, but yet as soon as they have a problem, they run to their mamas. So
All right, point well made. But I will say this: I hear what you guys are saying, and there's a lot of soul searching going on. I hear that there's a lot of reflection going on, just right here, and different points of view. But I guess now where I want to move us is what is going to change in the party? What is the future? I mean, one of the things we are even thinking about is Kamala Harris now the head of the party? Are they going to rally around her to come at this in the next 4 years? What are your thoughts on that, Rogette?
I think it's going to be an open primary process the next time around. I'm sure we'll start hearing some names. I'm sure people will start positioning themselves. I would just encourage anyone who's interested in running. And, you know, if Vice President Harris wants to run again, she'll have time to get known a little bit more. A lot of people said she didn't have policies, which isn't true. But I will admit that as Democrats, we do have to improve our messaging. The Biden-Harris administration has really done a lot over the past 4 years that people don't realize or know. And they're also getting blamed from things that happened or at least started during the Trump years. You know, inflation, I don't think a lot of people don't realize too, we didn't completely recover from COVID and the way that Trump
Yep.
mishandled it. And I don't know if we did a good enough job of educating the public on that. And unfortunately, we took the blame with it, not just with Harris losing, but I mean, we lost incumbents, possibly Senator Casey, talk about the end of a family dynasty if that happens. Congressman Susan Wild, Ohio lost Senator Sherrod Brown. I mean, we really lost some big fish there. Nationwide. So I think whoever runs, you know, get your messaging now. And we have to run for something. We can no longer say, don't vote for the other guy because he's crazy. We need to get people to vote for something. And we have time now to do that. And we have 2 years. The one thing about Pennsylvania, we have election every 6 months. So, and
That
we
you
need to
do have
build
some
the local
midterm.
level.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, in Dauphin County, we've made so many strides on the local level. We want to build on that next year. And hopefully we need our electeds too to stay involved in the party, not just when they run, but year round, so that we can continue to build the Democrat Party within Pennsylvania. So that's definitely something I'm going to push for.
So, Christopher, you want to add anything to that? Where you see things going in the future? Do you think it's going to be a Harris party, Kamala Harris, not Rogette Harris, but Kamala Harris national party, or do you see?
Well, after hearing what Harris has been saying here tonight, I that might actually be a good idea. That might be a good idea to put her in as DNC chair. Uh, um, we'll have to see. Yeah, I think this is one of the scenarios I do see potentially playing out. If Donald Trump comes in and I wrote about this a little bit in another newspaper about how what the potential is of inflation that's going to hit with the tariffs. So you have inflation, and then we have global inflation, but we could have domestic hyperinflation. And
Mhm.
then it's the same thing like, oh, things went from bad to worse. And that's where I wonder if there will just be like, we demand Harris type of movement.
Interesting.
If that's what I, maybe it's in a visionary. I I really believed in Harris. I think, it was a great, I wrote op-eds for her. I was in there. I think I talked a little bit in
Mhm.
the op-ed that you had published of mine. I really think she was the most, um, I'll be honest with you, my favorite presidential candidate that's ever ran. I
Wow,
really believe.
that's a tribute.
Well, I
Wow.
mean that, national, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I loved her style, her rhetoric, and you gotta realize I'm a military guy, so I think her prosecutor kind of relates to me.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot of like I was really surprised. A lot of union guys liked her. Um, there was there was a misogyny side of it, but I did see some there was like another side of it too, where she was just
Mhm.
relating to people so well. And so if things go from bad to worse, and a lot of these things, and you bring up the point, Harris, this is exactly what it is. Donald Trump gets to clean up Donald Trump's mess.
Well,
These are messes.
well, I mean, the point is that everything never goes right. Right, something is going to
Yes,
go
yes.
wrong, and the way that I've even had, I mean, we even published op-eds from economists, a conservative economist, Mickey Edwards, who
Hmm.
said expect a catastrophe. So again,
Yeah.
I personally hope Mickey Edwards is wrong because
Me too. I do not want that.
yeah, yeah. But that's what he's saying, that the policies that Trump is going to bring in are going to really be devastating for our country. So, all right. So here we are. You guys are still hurting, right? As is much of the nation. So you're still trying to reflect and figure out where to go from here. Well, the one thing that you need to remember is that 4 years ago, the Republicans were doing the same thing.
Yep.
They were right. They were having to lick their wounds, figure out a way forward. And the I think the only difference now is that people also are very, very, or many are very, very afraid of the damage that could be done these next 4 years, especially
And I
not.
people that get scared to the point where they don't want to be involved anymore. Because I hear some people saying that too. They're very devastated. They're scared. I mean, we were trying to educate people on Project 2025. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of upcoming potential policies that people are really scared about. But the way to fight it is to stay involved. So, and organized moving forward. So we're stronger next time. So
Well,
that's what I hope people don't do.
the other aspect of that, though, is that when you are really pressed and things are really scary for you, you feel you have to do something about it. And so that may be what your party needs to kind of re energize, because guess what? If you don't, it's it's a disaster in many, many ways. I mean, from mass deportations to whatever happens with tariffs to whatever happens with Ukraine. I mean, Russia could take over other parts of Europe because the president we're about to have says he'll let him do whatever he wants to do, right? And of course, we're looking at the Middle East, where we could continue to have a massacre of Palestinians. So there's a lot at stake, and if this doesn't keep people engaged, then I don't know what will. Really. Well, I want to thank you both for coming and sharing. Are there any final messages you want? Because one of the things we haven't talked about is what is the role that the Democratic Party and you as leaders are going to play in unifying, in kind of trying to bring people together, because you're not going to win back those voters that left by denigrating them, right? So any thoughts of how you're going to reach out? Chris, why don't you start this time and let Rogette have the last?
Sure. Channel, I think I'm building on what you're saying. Channel your energy. Talk to people. Understand what people are going through. And just stay in this game because it's a contact game. It's not right. You got to get your hands dirty in politics. It's part of the process. So stay engaged, believe in the process, but it's okay if you feel scared for your rights, for your family, for your economic security, with all the horrible signs of impending doom that we have. It's okay to feel that way, but take some time, re energize, regroup, and come back and channel that energy.
Mhm.
Beautiful, Christopher. Rogette, you have the last word.
Well, I totally agree with that. One of my district leaders always says that you either win or you learn. So we might didn't win, but there's a lot to learn. So I want us to learn, and I think our leader, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, says it best. He always says, "We run to win, we win to govern, and we govern to make life better for everyday Americans." In the end, it's about the policies. So channel that energy to help the party better recruit and win future elections, so that we can implement the policies that we truly believe in. That way we'll have a better county, state, and country.
Well, I thank you both again for being here. I guess you're going to regroup, lick your wounds, regroup, and get ready for the midterm. So with that, I thank you all, and I will see you guys again this time next week for another episode of Battleground PA. But this time, it will be with the Republican representatives who perhaps are feeling good, but they have some things to worry about as well, as we'll find in our next episode. So see you later, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.